A new rumor claims that Compulsion Games, which is owned by Xbox Game Studios, which is owned by Microsoft, race swapped their main character after the company hired Sweet Baby Inc. to consult on the game. Before we get into this, I'd like to ask you please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. Wrote this up over at thatparkplace.com, where I am the editor in chief, but I am not the founder of the website or owner. I am just the editor in chief. But this is the new rumor. It comes from Mark Kern, former World of Warcraft team lead, as part of a thread based on information he alleges to have received from an ex-developer at Compulsion Games. This is what he posted on X. He says, exclusive Microsoft Xbox mandates changes at studios. Hire Sweet Baby Inc. erases white characters. I spoke to ex-devs at two different studios who say DEI is ruining and altering games and studio culture. Changes happened after Xbox meddling. Kern continued, I have reasonably confirmed that the devs I spoke to used to work at the studios in question, Avalanche Studios Group and Compulsion Games. Both studios are also listed on the Sweet Baby Inc. Sweet Baby Inc. website. He corrects himself there. Microsoft made a splash at Game Developers Conference announcing their product inclusion guidelines for all their studios. Such changes have been reported elsewhere as woke, including defeminization of female characters, and cite widely discredited studies as their basis. Microsoft claims they do not mandate these guidelines, but in fact, they make sweeping changes at the studios they partner with. We'll get to that a little bit later, but let's continue with what Kern had to say here. He says alleged changes after Microsoft involvement, including hiring of a DEI director, hiring of a consulting firm to gender balance and review hiring promotion policies, hiring of Sweet Baby Inc. to work on the published games. Both studios underwent these changes after Microsoft and Sweet Baby Inc. involvement. One of the biggest changes to the game were alteration of the character creation system in Contraband. That's the game that I believe Avalanche is working on, to remove gender differences and allow for random swapping of distinct male-female body parts, facial hair, and more. But it didn't stop there. After Sweet Baby Inc. was brought on board Compulsion Games' South of Midnight, the main character was race swapped from white to black. He then shared a side-by-side of the main character and how she was allegedly originally designed. He wrote this. The main character of Hazel was swapped shortly after Sweet Baby Inc. involvement from white to black. And then he shared these two screenshots here of the characters in various forms of development. Obviously, in all of their promotional images, the main character of Hazel is a black woman. He then concluded writing this. These changes to the games at both studios and the culture changes at Contraband both happened after Microsoft and Sweet Baby Inc. involvement. The implication was that publishing money was pulling the strings, mandating studio changes in hiring of DEI staff and consultants, and altering the games. That is Microsoft or Xbox Game Studios. The publishing money, I think, is what he's referring to there. These changes do not seem to be organic, but the result of forced policies that come from the very top, powered by publishing influence and funding. Microsoft and Xbox's product inclusion guidelines are more mandatory than claimed. So again, we'll get to those inclusion guidelines. Let's hear with what Sweet Baby Inc. CEO Kim Belair had to say during a presentation at the Game Developers Conference. If you've been watching my videos over the past couple of weeks, you've probably seen this one before, but I think this is just proving the point. They do come in and they are trying to race swap characters. And she talked about this back in 2019. She said, I once worked on a project where they had an all-white cast where they expressed their desire, okay, we need to mix it up a bit. How about this character's like stereotypically French? So it sounds like the developers wanted to make one of their characters French because I guess they wanted to have a little bit of flavor to their characters that were in the game. And she goes on and says, so they have a beret and they have like a striped shirt. And I was like, okay, if you need to do that, can we at least make them a person of color? So she's clearly wanting to not have the character be French. She didn't like what the developers are doing. And fortunately for these developers, they said no. And this is what Belair said. And they said, oh, no, that would be weird. They're already French. And so Belair then said, so I want to do better than this, which means she wants to actually take what the developers have in mind and change it, aka race swap it. She didn't like that. She didn't view making this character French as diversifying it. That wasn't good enough for her. That wasn't She wants to change that. That's what she said. Game Developers Conference 2019. The entire presentation is here on thatparkplace.com. I will have the link to this article in the description below if you want to check out that full video. Now, I promised we would get to the Microsoft's Gaming for Everyone's product inclusion framework. They basically rolled this out for public access at the Game Developers Conference this year, which was earlier this month. And this is what Kern references. And we did see an interview from Microsoft's head of Gaming for Everyone and Sustainability, Katie Jo Wright, where she told games industry that the framework is not compulsory. She said this: the framework is not a checklist. It's not a mandate. Even internally, it's not that at all. It's just a way for you to get your game into the hands of more players in a meaningful way. However, if you actually look at portions of this framework, this is part of one of their 10 product inclusion actions. They have 10 of these, which are part of their 4 gateways that they have. It actually provides a checklist to achieve the goals developers come up with. And the third step of this checklist specifically states this: create and surface content that depicts diverse characters, stories, and creators. That really doesn't sound like it is not mandatory. It sounds very mandatory. It sounds like a command that this is what you need to be doing. And it continues saying, create playable characters that reflect the broader population, review how identities represented on screen, gender identities, races, sexual orientations, ability status, ages, and body sizes match up to the broader population. Make sure that characters are not tokenized or stereotyped based on their identities. Review how identities represented in your product, such as gender, race, sexuality, nationality, cultural, ability, age, and size compared to the broader global player population. Be intentional about which identities are present and highlighted according to what's right for your product and market. Make sure that characters are not tokenized or stereotyped based on their identities. No person or character can be a monolith to represent all people with that identity. Practice inclusive casting for any talent required to bring representation to life in your product. Validate your execution for your inclusive listening systems, consultants like Sweet Baby Inc., advisory councils, user research. So the screenshot from that program is right here in the article as well. So it does not look like it is not. It looks like it's mandatory, right? I think Wright is kind of sugarcoating exactly what this framework is and how it is applied internally. I mean, even reading this, it looks like it is not voluntary. It definitely looks like it is a checklist, and it looks like it is indeed mandatory. And to me, it comes across as, quote, this is my thoughts here, as you should be doing this. And if you aren't, maybe some changes need to be made. So I definitely feel like there is probably some smoke or some fire to this rumor. What's the phrase? Where there's smoke, there's fire. And it definitely looks like this. And if you remember, Compulsion Games is the company that supported Crystal Dynamics' disgusting trigger warning message on the front of Tomb Raider Remastered 1 through 3. So the trigger warning from Crystal Dynamics read this: the games in this collection contain offensive depictions of people and cultures rooted in racial and ethnic prejudices. These stereotypes are deeply harmful, inexcusable, and do not align with our values at Crystal Dynamics. Rather than removing this content, we have chosen to present it here in its original form, unaltered, in the hopes that we may acknowledge its harmful impact and learn from it. And we had Compulsion Games reacted to this, saying, many video games are a product of the times they were created in. As we look to recreate and remaster these stories for modern audiences, it's important to consider the implications of these harmful portrayals and do our part to rewrite new history, not repeat it. We applaud our peers at Crystal Dynamics for their reflections and corrections. So that is what Compulsion Games has done. So they're already about rewriting new history and are all about these trigger warnings. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they brought in Sweet Baby Inc. We know that Sweet Baby Inc. Compulsion Games is one of their clients, according to their website. They brought in Sweet Baby Inc. and Sweet Baby Inc. Advised them to race swap that character, and Compulsion Games did so. But let me know what you guys make of this rumor. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, but to always speak the truth.